Hi, Eduardo. So you've got another set of essays. Fantastic. Let's see what you did here, okay? Oops, hold on, just ignore that. All right, here we go. This is the one about vehicles. Let's see what you said. The graph provides information on the changing percentage of vehicle sales in 2018. Also, it shows a figure for the sales by 3 important brands. All right, there's one thing that I have to change here. We're not actually talking about changing percentages, not at all, actually. What you're looking at is basically nothing is changing. So it's the variety of sales. It's the figures for sales, but it's because it's just looking at one period in time, nothing is actually changing. So there's nothing that should imply any motion, any sort of change over time. And we're not talking about percentages here. We're talking about numbers. Look, they're in the thousands, so be careful with that. What you could have done instead is say the graph provides information on the number of cars sold in 2018 in 9 European countries by car type, okay? Specifically BMW, Ford, and Audi. That would have been a nice way to say this. Okay, according to the figures, the highest number of sales was in Hungary with almost 400,000 car sales without the of. France was the second highest with over 300,000. All right, this is not a new sentence. It's just a fragment. So, comma, followed by Germany, Ireland, and Holland, which reached 250,000. After them were the UK and Poland with an average of 200,000. Italy was the second lowest, which had over 100,000. The smallest number of sales was Belgium with less than 100,000. All right, now the good news about this is that you've done it exactly the way I would recommend. That's entirely how I would have done this. I would have spent one paragraph just talking about those totals because that's really important. What I found here, though, is that the language you used was really kind of monotonous. There wasn't much variety. It just like you went down the row like, you know, from top to bottom, and it just really didn't feel like you had any novel, any new language at all. Let's see. Was the second highest? How could you have done this differently? Okay, let me just give you my suggestion. So, as you said here, the highest number of sales was in Hungary with almost 400,000 car sales. France followed next with just over 300,000. The fewest cars sold actually were in Belgium at just under 100,000, and just above Belgium in terms of car sales with Italy with approximately 120,000. The remaining countries all had between 200 and 270,000, okay, car sales. So that's one way that you could have done this, all right? And then it would have been a nice short paragraph. You would have given me enough information. You could have mentioned the names of those countries that we just kind of neglected to really talk about in detail. You would have been fine, okay? So, in 2018, car sales by Ford, Audi, and BMW showed different, it's not percentages, careful, we're talking about numbers. Firstly, Hungary, Poland, and France presented almost 30. Oh, I see. You decided to talk about this in terms of percent. I really would rather you didn't do that. It's not listed here in percent at all. It's listed in numbers, so stick with that. Okay, let's see. So firstly, Hungary, Poland, and France presented... All right, you could have said almost an equal distribution of sales by each brand. UK and Holland had more preference, UK and Holland had a higher preference for Ford and BMW than Audi. Germany and Poland preferred Audi and BMW. All right, here you needed a whereas Poland and Germany preferred Audi and BMW. However, Italy had a strong inclination for BMW with over 80%. That's kind of awkward, really. Finally, Belgium that's weird. Let's see, how can we say this better? Belgium, comma, Belgium, comma, where the highest selling company was Ford. You can't say that either. Okay, I think I got it. Here's how you fix it. Finally, in Belgium, comma, the most cars sold were Ford with almost 100% of the sales. That's how you do it, okay? So you need to make some of these changes. You decided to talk about these in terms of percentage. I would rather you didn't do that. I mean, sometimes you can do that if it's like a pie chart, for example, and you want to talk about like fractions, like this is a quarter rather than saying 25%, that's okay. But here you've got numbers, so I'm not a huge fan of this, but it's okay. The good news is that I really like the way you organized it. So that's good. I absolutely agree with the way you structured your answer. So let's take a look now at this essay on pollution. Let me tell you straight away what concerns me. Look at this. So great, you've got your introduction, you've got your conclusion. Now look at your body paragraphs. You've got 3 tiny little lines for this paragraph. And then here you've got this like enormous paragraph, which is like 3 times as large. So I don't know why you've done this, but let's take a look. Basically, let me tell you what happens to me here. When I look at this, it's like a red flag, and I think, uh-oh, we've got one side of the argument that might be more fully developed than the other. Okay? So just keep that in mind and try to balance your paragraphs a little better. So here's what you actually said, though. In recent years, the contamination issue has been rising to the highest levels. The large cities around the world have presented different problems in relation to pollution. Okay, here's where you need to also add that despite these problems, there are a variety of solutions available, because you have to make it known that you're also going to offer some suggestions in terms of solutions. So one of the reasons for this issue is the overpopulation in large cities. Many of these cities are not able to address waste or traffic concerns, which are the main generators of contamination. An example of this is my original city in Venezuela, which was a small town for years. However, nowadays it is a huge city. The population has been going up from thousands until millions of people. At the same time, rubbish and vehicles have been rising. The city is not prepared because the infrastructure is the same. Here we have to make some changes. Okay, so the infrastructure is the same as it was 100 years ago, or the infrastructure has been the same for 100 years, or the infrastructure has been the same since 100 years ago. Then the pollution generated by cars and waste is becoming worse with an E, not a T. One solution to this problem could be to ban private vehicles in the city center, enabling public transport in better conditions, which could be electrical and eco-friendly, would also be a solution. It's not a full sentence, okay, so please be careful. Moreover, the city could have a major number of waste containers. Today, people dispose of their rubbish on streets using bags, which is extremely harmful because there are many bacteria around them. Okay. Another problem in huge towns is the lack of collecting waste. Generally, the cities do not have an appropriate number of trucks. If for any reason some trucks are failing, then some parts of the town could not be attended to, with a 2 here. This issue is easier to solve. Here you need a colon. The authorities should obtain more waste trucks. The government also should have a better schedule and planning to allocate resources. To sum up, many of these issues could be solved by help from the government or authorities. However, we should also work on that. As there are many ways to avoid contamination, such as recycling or reducing energy consumption. Why are you talking about this now? You didn't talk about this anywhere in your body paragraph. And your conclusion is not a place for you to introduce new elements here of this essay, either problems or solutions. The place for your problems and your solutions are in your body paragraphs, not in your conclusion. Everybody's part of the society, and we could solve these kinds of issues. Okay, so my concern in the beginning remains my concern now. I thought that the way you organized your paragraphs was really a little baffling. There are 2 ways to organize your paragraphs in an essay like this, in a problem-solution essay. One way is to have a paragraph just of problems, and then you have a paragraph just with solutions. Alternatively, you could pick 2 or 4 problems and structure your paragraphs around those. So, problem 1, and then right after it, say what the solution is. Problem 2, right after that, say what the solution is. And then another paragraph. Again, the exact same thing. Problem 1 with its solution, problem 2 with its solution. That's kind of what you did here, but you could see that it looks like a really lopsided essay because this is really far larger than the other one, so it seems kind of confusing here. Plus, I felt like you really talked a lot more about problems here, and then towards the end you just mentioned some solutions. So that's something I want you to be concerned about. You need to make sure that your paragraphs are at least as much as possible without becoming obsessive in counting lines or counting words. You have to make sure that they're fairly equal, okay? All right, so let's see. Do we have anything else to look at? No, we've looked at task 1, we've looked at task 2. So now what you need to do is correct these, return them back to us corrected, and write your next set of essays. We're here, we're waiting for them. So go ahead and get that started. All right, let's meet back here with your new set, so good luck.